Welcome to Walking the Blue Line. I'm Lyle.
I'm Yvonne, and
And
we're the
we're the
Johnstons.
Johnstons. Yes, we are starting a podcast, and you'll be able to catch this first episode on Facebook and YouTube with a lot more episodes soon to come on all of your favorite places to get podcasts, whether that's Apple Music, iHeartRadio, or a variety of other locations. And so for tonight, we wanted to start with a little bit of a dark story because this is Halloween. Yvonne, what is our story for this evening?
This is A Pirate in the Night, and it deals with the 2016 murder of Robert Tester. And this is a very twisted story. It starts out looking like a slam dunk, you know what happened, and it has a completely different twist, right?
It does. I remember this investigation.
That's right. We wanted to point out that this is one of Lyle's actual cases.
A lot of what we hope to bring you will be things that I was either actually involved in or partnered with. And we hope to bring you some items from other officers as well. But on this particular one, I ended up being the lead investigator initially. I remember this partially because of the travesty that happened, but it also happened like on a Tuesday morning when I'm fresh into work after a 3-day weekend.
This happened the day after Labor Day, right?
Right, 2016,
yes,
to be exact.
And the call comes in as a murder.
Right. A young girl, GT.
8 years old.
Yeah. The daughter of the victim had called her grandparents to tell them that she needed help. I think I told you about that phone call, didn't I? Do you remember?
I think you did, because
what she said?
It was, can somebody please come over and be with me who isn't dead?
I know. It was so haunting.
She had, well, we'll get into the story, but she had tried to call someone earlier, but she had ended up staying in the house by herself with her father for 4 or 5 hours?
Exactly. Yeah.
And he was deceased. So the story starts as...
Well, it really starts several weeks earlier when the homeowner, Robert Tester, GT's father, is having a number of people over at his house. I mean, Robert's kind of a normal guy, lives down in southern Spokane County near a small town called Spangle. But he's also kind of got some famous roots in terms of who he's related to and
someone
such.
Kind of bigwig in Montana, huh?
Right, yeah. His family was originally from Montana, and his uncle is a U.S. senator. So,
but that didn't really do anything for him. He didn't have anything that came out of that. No fame, no fortune, no help. Right. It was just a thing that was.
Yeah. I mean, they're extended family.
Yeah.
So he wasn't really famous or anything just because his uncle was a senator. But so back to at hand, Robert has this house, southern Spokane County.
Oh, we wanted to point out, though, that he did have a few extra, what do you want to call it, curricular, not really curricular, but funds coming in. So he dealt in raising pot. That was one of his main sources of income.
Right.
So he had a large pot grow, and he had one tenant living with him in the house, along with his daughter and a live-in kind of babysitter.
Right. Yeah. He had met a young girl who he asked to come over and babysit his daughter, as well as to help him around the house. And that young girl
kind of was his girlfriend-ish, right?
Yeah, girlfriend-ish as well. But she kind of came from the streets, so she had a nickname, and that seemed to be all anybody really knew her by, which was Skittles.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Skittles was like kind of a live-in babysitter. Like, she would come in and stay with him for days and weeks because she lived like 45 miles away, so she didn't go home. And she was sort of dating him as well. And so getting back to the initial thing that happened, 2 weeks before the murder, was it was a fight, or I guess you want to call it an argument or something, between him and his tenant. And his tenant's name was Balin Brown.
Right. Balin had been living there for a while, paying rent, but at the same time, it appeared that he had some romantic interest in Skittles as well, and this caused a
Yes.
little bit of friction.
Yeah.
So,
He was actually having a party or a get together. He had
right.
friends there.
Yeah, Robert was having the party. A
Right.
number of friends were over, people that knew Skittles, people that knew all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And this situation comes to a head where Balin and Robert get into an argument over Skittles.
And Robert accuses Balin of sleeping with Skittles. And so they get into this really big argument. It gets so bad that Balin, does he go down to the basement and comes back up with a couple of knives, like
Right.
two of them. And he's downstairs in the main, I guess, the main part of the house. And then Robert is upstairs and he goes and grabs a splitting maul, and they're yelling at each other, right? Up, he's upstairs and one's downstairs. And it gets so bad that they're like saying, Balin saying, I'm going to kill you or something like that, or they both are. And then their friends, I guess, were able to kind of, cool the situation down. And it ends up nobody got hurt. And then Balin moves out right after that.
Right. Yeah. Robert had this large splitting maul for cutting wood that he had sitting beside the door. And Balin apparently was into large army type knives. So
this was quite a display, huh?
Yeah, these weren't little bitty knives.
No.
These things were pretty good size. Balin's room had been down in the basement, so that's where he went to get them. But nevertheless, Balin leaves the house. The two are separated, and you would think that it's over.
Right.
But you could also see where Robert, now thinking that Skittles is fooling around on him, the tension kind of remains, and the two of them possibly have a fight within the next couple of days themselves.
Yeah.
Skittles ends up wanting to go home and asks Robert to give her a ride. So he does. And from there, though, she ends up going to the hospital.
Because they get into an argument. Supposedly, there isn't a lot of proof about this part, but him and Skittles get into an argument. She tells people that he hit her and knocked her down, and she hit her head on the coffee table, and she thought she got a concussion because she's feeling kind of, nauseous and dizzy. So she ends up going to the hospital and telling us, but like we said, there's no proof, but, it could have happened.
Right.
But while she's in the hospital, she gets a visitor.
Well, she actually gets several visitors.
Well, that's true.
Her friends come in and are wishing her well. But one in particular, a guy by the name of John Radovich, who she knows, and I think that he would like to be her boyfriend as well. He has some romantic interest.
Yeah, in her.
So,
but she tells him this story that, this guy that she was living with knocks her around, she hits her head, and that's how she ended up in the hospital. And, well, I'll let you take this.
So that whole incident of going to the hospital happens on about September 4th or September 5th. Tuesday morning, it's about 2:30 in the morning when GT, who's sleeping in her father's bed with him, is awoken to an intruder stabbing her dad right there in the bedroom. And her dad's pleading for help.
And it gets a little weird here because the attacker actually looks to GT and says something to her. And he tells her, your dad is going to die. Well, the stabbing continues to go on. And I mean, it's a lot. And it finally gets to the point where I think Robert gets away for a little bit, doesn't he? He kind of makes a path through the house to try to get away.
Right. Robert is trying to get away from the assailant. At the same time, he is begging the individual to stop. And he goes from the bedroom to a main level bathroom. Then he goes downstairs. He comes back upstairs. He goes through the living room into the kitchen and finally collapses in the dining room.
And the assailant is comes after him. At one point, though, Robert does kind of lean up against one of the walls.
Right, the wall is in the bedroom, and you can see how much blood Robert's losing because he leaves an impression on the wall that almost looked like an angel if you've seen a snow angel. At the
But
same time,
it's all red.
it's all
It's
red.
blood.
It's blood.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, I mean, another way to describe it is it could look like the Phoenix from hell
Yeah.
because it is very gory and there's so much blood everywhere.
And so while he's down there in the kitchen, he finally collapses. And you would think that this would be the end of it, but no, it gets a little bit worse. So the assailant actually grabs the splitting maul that Robert usually has sitting by his door, and he hits him over the head, like not a little, like a lot. He hits him so hard that when he raises his hand, and he breaks the light fixture right
Above him.
and
Yep.
he hits him twice on the head, and that pretty much does it. But then it gets even a little creepier after that because the assailant does something.
Well, first, he probably is trying to hide some of the evidence, so he lights a propane torch and knocks it over so it's burning on the floor. But this really doesn't do anything. It apparently burns itself out.
Leaves a tiny little scorch mark, but maybe he was thinking he would burn the house down. But
And if he was, I mean, that's really terrible because GT is still there and she's alive.
But he says something to her.
Right. On his way out, he says something to her.
Well, we don't really know what he said, but GT said this about it.
Later, when she's being interviewed, she describes him as a pirate.
With a voice like
based on what he had to say.
And he had a mask on.
Right.
Yes.
So she describes him as a pirate. And poor little girl, her grandparents are the next people that she tries to call, because she tries to call at the end of the attack, which is around 3:30. But we don't really know who she tried to call. She tried to call for help. She says
she didn't get any help. So then it was like later, like we mentioned earlier, it was what, 7 or 8 in the morning?
It's 7 o'clock in the morning when she finally reaches out to her grandmother. And when she calls her grandmother, she makes that statement of, can you send someone over here to watch me who isn't dead? So her father has been dead for a while. She's been locked in the house with him, probably completely traumatized and scared of what has just taken place. And she got to see a lot of it.
Yeah, like most of it, I think.
Right. So her grandparents, who also live over in the Coeur d'Alene area, immediately call the Spokane County Sheriff's Office, and deputies respond to the scene. They find GT, and they find her father deceased. They clear the house and immediately call for detectives to respond to the scene and start an investigation. Mm-hmm. This is where I come in, as well as everyone in the unit responded down there that morning to process the crime scene and begin our investigation.
And this is where it kind of started looking, like I said, like a slam dunk. Like there was all this evidence and people that had watched him and his, tenant have this huge argument with the knives and stuff. So, of course, everyone's thinking that it's Balin.
Right. We went around and interviewed a number of people, and it took a little while to get Balin's name as a potential suspect. But because he had just recently moved out, there were a number of people that were aware of the altercations that they had. And
Skittles also mentioned him and a few other people that she thought it could be. So you guys actually got a hold of Balin pretty quickly and talked to him in a parking lot, right, on the South Hill?
Right, yeah. It was the very same day as the homicide that we tracked Balin down, was able to get in touch with him, and he was a little bit shocked, or seemed to be shocked, to hear about the murder. But he agreed to meet with us, and he didn't want to tell us exactly where he was living. So there are some things that Balin's doing that are a little bit suspicious.
Yeah, and so, but he does meet you, and when he starts to talk to you guys, he's kind of in a defensive stance, and he is answering the questions. But he does mention that he doesn't even have a car, and that is known, and so he doesn't really have a way out there anymore.
Yeah, he told us some friends that he had been staying with, and later on they verified as well that he didn't have a car and that he had been at their house all night long. So he's looking like he's got a pretty good alibi, although everything just fits. I mean,
Yeah,
he showed two knives earlier. He
yeah,
told Robert he was going to stab him. The splitting maul, which Robert had displayed, was used in the homicide.
and
And
yeah,
these guys seem like they have no love lost between one
yeah.
another, so it seems like this should be our guy. But better have all of your ducks in a row, so we continue to investigate.
And the case kind of goes a little cold for a while, doesn't it? You guys don't get too many leads, or the leads you're getting aren't panning out.
Exactly. I mean, we've got a lot of information to still sort through. We had some tower records from cell phones and things, but those are really long term leads to follow up, which we hadn't gotten to at that point. But
And
still, the biggest leads, the interviews with people and such, just really aren't going anywhere.
yeah, until one day, and it was the day after Christmas, December 26th. You come into your office and
It's almost like a Christmas present
yes, in a creepy way.
in a very
A
creepy
creepy
way.
way.
But the day after Christmas, December 26th, come into the sheriff's office, and um, a phone message from a Ricky Watt in Texas is there saying that he has spoken with someone who has identified themselves as the killer of Robert Tester, and he has a recorded phone call of them talking about it.
And it's kind of a complete confession, isn't it?
It is. It's a complete confession.
Taped. And in Texas, this is not against the law to not say you're recording. And this guy was in a position where he recorded almost all of his calls, and I think almost everyone knew that.
Right.
But him and this guy had been a friend, right?
Yeah.
And they, as was it younger, they had talked about being like superheroes,
Avengers and that kind of thing, and wanting to right
wrongs, kind of like a vigilante type thing.
Exactly. So they had a long friendship, and Ricky had moved down to Texas and was working at a company, and through his company, yeah, like you already said, he records all of his phone calls. So
Yeah.
when his friend calls up, the call just automatically got recorded, and Ricky
Yeah.
didn't have to do anything out of the ordinary to capture that call.
Yeah.
But his friend identifies himself, number one, as John Radovich, a name that we had heard earlier, but it was so kind of minute in passing. Where
Well, the way Skittles gave the name, and she said, well, the only reason I mention him is because he was in the military and he knows how to get things done. But she said that she really didn't put a high priority on him as being the suspect.
So, yeah, she, I think, was asked the general question of, well, do you know anyone that may have done this? And she listed Balin Brown, and she listed John Radovich, and she listed a couple of other people as well. But she didn't provide a phone number for John, and she didn't provide any way for us to contact several of these people. So they were quite a ways down on our list of people to contact.
Yeah.
Anyway, Ricky, though, with this new information and a confession, agrees to send me a copy of the recording, which he does, and of course we listen to, in which John admits that he had gone and stabbed Robert Tester.
Well, and didn't he elaborate a little bit on how he was a cosplayer or something, and
Well, he didn't elaborate in that one as
Oh,
the cosplay, but he did basically say how he had wanted to do this kind of like the Avenger, that he has finally gotten to play the vigilante and
fix a wrong or something.
fix a wrong.
Supposedly sticking up for Skittles because of being knocked down and getting a concussion. He took it upon himself to make a wrong a
Right,
right in a very weird, creepy way. No, not just creepy, like evil.
right.
Really, was horrible.
So when we get into investigating John Radovich, this is when we find out that he is into cosplay. He has some friends that were into it, and he liked to do cosplay and costume playing, basically, is what it is. And
That also comes into play with GT, who she said that the guy looked like a pirate and had a mask on.
right,
So,
so all of that started to kind of make sense. So now we have the fact that he's made a confession. We have his name. We know where to go look for him. So we start looking at what other things can we tie in. And we come up with phone records.
and lo and behold, his phone pings at that location at that night.
Yep, he happened to make some phone calls when he was very close to Tester's Robert's house.
And is that when he had tried to get a friend to come help him?
Well, through those phone records, yes, we were able to track down a friend who he had gone to his friend's house earlier in the evening, right before going out to Robert's house, and tried to recruit this individual to go with him to kill Robert.
And obviously that friend didn't go, but he also didn't turn it in because he thought, oh, I thought he was just blowing smoke and nothing was going to come of it. Well, he was wrong.
And then, lo and behold, after the homicide takes place, Robert goes to another girl's house over in the Coeur d'Alene area and visits her in the very early morning hours and tells her that he had committed a murder,
Yeah.
but wasn't very specific with her about who it was. So,
But didn't he end up telling a few different people that he had done this?
right, he had told a couple people now, as well as
The recording.
the recording. And probably one of the final big pieces of evidence was that now that we had a suspect, we were able to go collect DNA evidence, and we found that John Radovich's DNA actually matches the DNA on the splitting maul that was left at the scene.
Yeah.
So now we've got his DNA, we've got his phone records. Pretty much seems like a pretty tight case, and we go and arrest John Radovich.
Yeah. Pretty scary stuff. Yeah. I couldn't imagine being the little girl, GT. I can't imagine that.
Yeah, she definitely had probably a very hard time living through all of this. Well, John Radovich ended up being charged with first-degree murder and premeditation and went to court in 2019.
He was finally sentenced to life in prison without parole.
So
this concludes our first in I don't know, hopefully a long line of true crime to come podcasts. Yes.
If you'd like to know more about this case, there's a lot of information out there in terms of press releases and such that follow John Radovich's arrest and his incarceration, his trial that found him guilty. If you have questions for us, we will be available at walkingtheblueline40@gmail.com. We will be on Facebook. We have a Facebook page.
Walking the Blue Line.
Walking the Blue Line will be on YouTube. And yes, as we said, we'll be out there on most of the podcast forums. If you'd like to send us any questions or feedback about whether you enjoyed this or what you'd like to see further of, please let us know.
Yeah, we hope to bring this to a place where you can come in and do true crime. Our family is in this and involved in this. Our daughter and our son-in-law are now both deputy sheriffs for Spokane County. And my sister's married to a retired police officer. Our niece is actually married to a police officer in Montana. So we have a lot of friends, family that we want to bring stories from.
Right. So we hope to have a lot more
Yeah.
entertainment for you in the future. And we appreciate you tuning in, like, and subscribe. And we'll see you again the next time on Walking the Blue Line.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.